Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Councillor Claire Douglas, and I am the leader of the council and the chair of this Staffing Matters and Urgency Committee on Monday, the 2nd of June. And if we go directly to the agenda, item number 1 is apologies for absence, and we have no apologies today. Everybody's present. Item number 2 is declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations? No declarations of interest. Item number 3 is the minutes of the meeting that was held on the 13th of January 2025. And can I see those who are in favour of approving those minutes? Great, thank you for that. So those are approved, and I'll sign those at the end of the meeting. Item number 4 is public participation, and we have nobody registered to speak, so there's no public participation there. And then item number 5, we move on to appointment of the new YorWaste director, and Helen Whiting is going to introduce that for us. Please go ahead, Helen. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. So this is the appointment of YorWaste Limited. We've recently had the resignation of former director of James Gilchrist as the Director of Environment Planning and Transport. And as he left City of York Council, he also left the role of YorWaste Director. And we are looking to appoint a new director to this role, similar to the way we did for James earlier last year, and we're looking to appoint Debbie Mitchell, who is currently the Director of Finance for the City of York Council. And just as a reminder that this is not a remunerated post, and we're just seeking formal approval for this to happen. There are meetings coming up for YorWaste, which Debbie hasn't been formally approved for yet, however will be appointed should it be approved here at Staffing Matters. And I'm happy to take any questions on that.
Thank you very much, Helen. Does anybody have any questions for Helen? Please go ahead, Councillor.
Just 2 very brief ones, Chair. One just about why we've changed direction, because it's generally been the director of the service area rather than the finance director. Just wondered what the reasoning behind that was. And the second one is about bullet point B, that you're asking for in future to be delegated officer decision. Hasn't ever been an issue before. I just wondered what the particular reason for the change was.
The appointment of Debbie is in an interim. You will actually see another report coming once we've appointed the new Director of Regulation and Environmental Services and Regulatory Services. The appointee won't start until 1st of August. So it is an interim process at this point to handhold that. And the item B, for the reason, this was something that I think has been omitted from the last report. I was informed by legal that that was appropriate, so I'm quite happy to take it back, because I'm only presenting it on behalf of Bryn Roberts. So I can certainly bring that back to outside of the meeting and confirm that for you.
Thank you, Helen. Any other thought, comment? No. So I believe on point B as well, this is something that has been included in other appointments of directors as well at this level, that the monitoring officer felt that it was appropriate, that it was reasonable for that to be a delegated decision rather than a member decision. I think it's been in the Constitution for some time. It's not new, I don't think. Right, okay. So in that case, then the recommendations are on page 11, 10 and 11 rather, paragraphs 10A and B, and 10A is to approve the appointment of Debbie Mitchell, the Council's Director of Finance, to represent the Council on the Board of Directors for YorWaste from the 2nd of June. Following the resignation of James Gilchrist, and then B, to delegate authority to the Chief Operating Officer and the Monitoring Officer to select and appoint any member and or officer to represent the Council on the Board of Directors of YorWaste Limited, and where necessary in the future remove and or replace said individuals from the board, pursuant to delegated authority under Article 11, etc., etc. So please can I see those who are in favour of the recommendations? Thank you. Thanks. So that's approved unanimously. Thank you very much for that, everybody. Next item is item number 6, which is the market supplement for the Corporate Director of Children and Education Services. Please go ahead, Helen. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, this is for market supplement, as was said, and this is part of the Staffing Matters and Urgency Committee approval because this is a chief officer. It's a non-routine pay-related matter, so all of the pay-related matters could go through, but this is for transparency as well. We have formally had a market supplement for this post, and it was removed in 2019. The corporate director has currently been in post since August 22, and there's been a number of successful projects, and more recently is the Ofsted, where we've taken a rating from requires improvement in 2022 to outstanding in all areas, which we were very proud to report just April this year. We've done some research around the salary for the post, and it is much lower than a number of the posts both in the country and in the Yorkshire and Humber. And within Yorkshire and Humber, I've attached to Appendix 1 the details of salaries there. There has been an opportunity that's arisen in North Yorkshire Council. The current Director of Children's in North Yorkshire is currently advertised following the announcement of the retirement. And should we lose York's corporate director for children's, it would put us in a particularly vulnerable position. So hence why we're looking at a market supplement to be quite proactive. A market supplement would be reviewable. It is a supplement to the salary, exactly what it says, to the substantive salary, and it's subject to LGPS, pensionable under LGPS. In terms, just for your interest, in terms of other market supplements, it's not something that we use widely. They're all looked at in detail. We have literally just done a couple of other market supplements for some other officers in the council, and we will report those to Staffing Matters because they've only just been done in May. But this is a legitimate way of making sure that we're being proactive in the market and also making sure that we are looking at the longevity of making sure we have quality staff here in York. One of the big challenges that we've got, and one of the reasons why we're looking at this, is the major reform for children's services, which really does require an awful lot of dedicated leadership in addition to the whole of corporate management team. But to be able to attract a really experienced director would be very difficult, certainly with the low salary that we've got compared to a number of the directors of children's services in the UK. From the database of information that we've got. So what we're looking for is the proposal to hit the initial salary of up to 140k, which is an equivalent of 17,285 as a supplement, which would be awarded on top of the current salary of 122,715. And I've detailed that information in paragraph 23. I've set out for you in paragraph 25 the implications around this, but the recommendation is that in order to be able to retain the current director, corporate director, and to make sure that we're competitive in the market and be able to deal with the future challenges that are presented to York, that we do make this market supplement. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that, Helen. Does anybody have any questions for Helen at all on this? Okay, would you want to go ahead then, Councillor Eyre, please? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think this is a particularly difficult one, and I have spoken to Helen before meeting to work out what is appropriate to be discussed. I think one of the problems is this refers to an individual. Ordinarily, the last time we did it for this particular post, it was when we were trying to recruit. So it was literally to the post, and we'd had issues with the recruitment process. So it was about upping the salary on the advert in terms of doing that. So we didn't have to get into speculations about individuals' motivations and what that is. But a lot of the report sort of hinges on that individual and what the individual may or may not be choosing to do, which makes it particularly difficult in terms of what view we take as a committee in whether that's the validity of that or not. It refers specifically to flight risk, and the question about whether there is a validity to that threat or not is difficult in terms of that. I have concerns about the benchmarking that's been done. I think it's what we often do. We do local benchmarking, but that doesn't really help. We don't have statistical neighbours benchmarking. So obviously the first one on the post that is currently vacant at North Yorkshire is a £1.3 billion budget. That completely dwarfs what we're doing. It's a much bigger role. One of the lower paid ones, even Doncaster at 138,000, their children's budget alone is significantly higher than our total revenue budget. So again, it's a completely different post. It would have been more useful to have statistical neighbours, local authorities of similar children's services of similar budgets, and seeing what those particular pay differentials were. Paragraph 18, you refer to the need to recruit an experienced director of children's services. Well, actually, we didn't recruit an experienced director of children's services. We recruited an AD from a neighbouring authority, and he's the one that's delivering that change. So it's not necessarily the case. But we had an experienced DCS before that. We actually went the other route and got somebody who was on the career ladder, as it were, and I believe that's actually worked out as great a benefit to us. As I've said many times, I have concerns. So the senior pay figures came out just recently, despite the fact we were trying to make savings of £250,000 in that restructure. Those senior pay scales are already more than they were 2-3 years ago through various incremental increments, promotions, etc. So we didn't make that 250,000 saving. We're already spending more on senior management than we were 2 years ago, and this adds to that. Have significant concerns about the growing pay differential between the top and the bottom of people in that particular department and across. Again, paragraph 25B, there's brief mention to something that I'd already thought of, is what are the potential knock-on effects of this. If we are talking about roles, this isn't the biggest role necessarily in the local authority. The director of adult services has a significantly higher budget pressures, etc. I think it would be very difficult if you do making a case for this to not make the case for that particular role. I think equally as you're going down the pay scale, anyone at assistant director level, etc., that were involved in that, I think you have, again, difficulty in saying, well, why does that one individual deserve that market supplement and not the tiers below that one? And I think just generally, as you said, paragraph 25A points out that we will have to make £25,000 worth of cuts to be able to do this. And I think that has a knock-on effect across the whole council, people facing redundancy, staff losses all over, staff cuts all the way across that. And then reading papers like this, I find very difficult. So personally, I wouldn't support going for this particular approach.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Councillor Kilbane.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I take on board a lot of what you're saying, Councillor. I think we can dispute whether or not we're spending more on senior management figures. It depends where you draw the line. Depends, who you're including across that line. And obviously, there are all of the pay rises, the natural increments that have happened over the years that you'd expect to happen anyway in any business. I think I want to, like you, I want to avoid talking about the individual really, because it is a little bit difficult to do that. However, what I would say is that, children's services has improved dramatically over the last couple of years, and that we should definitely reward success, and we should definitely retain the people responsible for it. I think this is obviously difficult, isn't it? Because for ordinary people, dare I say it, people like ourselves who are on sort of normal wages, look at this and your mind just begins to boggle, doesn't it? When you look at the figures that these directors within local authorities can command. And I would say that it wasn't until I started working in as an executive member of the council, and probably if I use external bodies that I sit on as an example would be better. So I sit on recruitment panels for this level of job for different statutory bodies in different industries. And I've got to say, I'm always astonished at the level of salary that we're offering and the quality of the candidates who then apply for those jobs. And typically, with external bodies, I've found that there's maybe of a whole range of people who've applied, there's maybe a couple of people that you could actually offer the job to step into it and do it. Even when you're offering salaries in the region of about £140,000 a year. I mean, I've often sat there thinking, am I in the wrong job here? You know, because of, but most people don't approach anywhere near these kind of salaries. And actually, you know, the supplement that we're talking about for some people is the equivalent to a year's wages. So I think this is a very difficult area, and it's been a difficult one for us to get our heads around. But we live in a market economy, and in that market economy, the people who can do these kind of jobs, this is where they're valued at. Some of us might think that's all, you know, wrong, and actually it's the people who sweep our streets and empty our bins who should be earning the most money in the society that we live in. But that's just simply not the way that it currently works. And I think if we are going to retain the staff, if we're going to be competitive, then these are that we have to offer. Yes, it will have implications, I'm sure, across the whole of the council, but we can deal with those on a case-by-case basis. But as you can see from the subsequent report, actually, we've got less people leaving the council and more people starting. So it does seem to be a desirable place for people to be working these days. So I've taken on board all the concerns that Councillor has raised. I think that we need to congratulate Children's Services on the massive improvements that they've made. Be happy to reward success with the proviso that to ordinary people, it does seem mind-boggling, these kinds of salaries. However, that is the going rate for the market that we're in. And I think we have to deal with that.
Thank you, Councillor Kilbane. And yeah, I would just first of all like to ask a question of Helen before I say anything further. So on page 18 at paragraph 13, it talks about the clawback agreement and a review on an annual basis. Can you just describe to us, Helen, what that looks like or what has been agreed, please?
Haven't agreed anything at this point until it was agreed here. But the post holder, rather than going into any details, is quite aware that that's what we'll be putting on the table. That should he leave, we will be looking at clawing back this market supplement. So,
thank you. So that's still to be negotiated then, and clawbacks usually have a period of time that they last for and would need to be quantified as well, but that detail will be decided imminently if we decide to move ahead, I assume.
yes, absolutely. So nothing's been done at this point in time to be approved here, but the post holder's been made very well aware the fact that we will be looking at clawing back on a pro rata basis. We've been given an initial indication of 3 to 4 years that will be reviewable on an annual basis, and the suggestion is at the time of the annual pay award, which does fluctuate throughout the year, but it will be reviewed on an annual basis.
Thank you very much. Right, so yeah, as Councillor Kilbane and Councillor Eyre have outlined, that this is a difficult issue. It always is to decide upon somebody's salary, but I don't think that we can ignore at all the fact that this level of role, it is a tremendously competitive market out there, and also the absolutely amazing improvements that have been made within Children's Services over the past 2 years, and that has now been tested by Ofsted, and we are in the top 10% performing authorities in the country now. So we've gone from one of the lowest performing to one of the top performing in 2 years, and that is absolutely unheard of. And there is a great deal of stability within the service that comes from the top and is stimulated from the top with a fantastic team below. So we need to support that and really make sure that our children's services, our performance there continues to be excellent. And the only way that we can do that is really through stability. And so I feel as though this is very important. And Councillor Eyre raised the benchmarking aspect earlier, and we use those that benchmarks that are closest to us, because that is likely where this person could end up being employed if they were going to leave us for another role. The reality is, Councillor Corbane outlined earlier that senior officers do earn a lot of money, but York is by no means one of the top payers in this space. So if you looked at our statistical neighbours, I'm sure you'd see they were higher than the rates that we're proposing on paying, or in the vicinity. So all in all, I think once you take into account the disruption that this person leaving the service would cause, the cost of recruitment again, and also restabilising the service and any other knock-on impacts that could have, that the amounts of money that we're talking about here are relatively good value for money in that respect. And so my view is that this is the right thing to do. So I'm going to draw yourself to the recommendations, which are on page 15, paragraphs 4A, B and 5. And the options are also outlined on pages 21 and 22 at paragraphs D, 1 and 2. And the options do outline that we could do nothing and risk losing this person from the council, or we approve the recommendations as at page 15, 16. So on page 15, 4A is it's recommended committee approve a market supplement for the post of Corporate Director of Children Education Services to ensure that the post is competitive in the current market and not risk the departure of the current post holder. And B, subject to approval, the supplement will be monitored by the Chief Officer. HR and support services as part of regular reports to the committee relating to market supplements and retention payments, and that this supplement will be presented in that report. And then 5 outlines some reasons for making that we're going to consider it for. I keep losing.
Yeah, I think there's appearance in this room. I've got the room mic, so if the mic goes off, it will still be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Yeah, it does keep going off. Okay. So in that case, then can I see those who are in support of the recommendations for recommendations at 4A and 4B, backed up with the reasons in paragraph 5, please. Thank you. So there's 2 for, anybody against, 1 against, abstentions, none. So that means that the recommendation, page 15, 16, paragraph 4A and B is approved. Thank you. Right, item number 7 is next, and that's the workforce profile as at Q4 24-25. Helen, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So this is one of our regular reports. So this is the Q4 report, which is for the full year of the 1st of April 24 to the 31st of March 25. And in the appendice, in the annex, you'll be able to see where some of these figures are either one-offs, a point in time, or a rolling 12 months. At paragraph 4, you will see that we have summarised the headcount, FTE, average day sickness, new starters, leavers, resignations and retirement. You will see that the headcount and the FTE has been increased over this period. Just to picking out a few elements of that, we welcomed a number of staff who were tupied in to the council, most notably about approximately 16 new colleagues joined in December from Changing Lives, who came to us. City Development has been a growing directorate with new funding, which is we've attracted new funding, so there's therefore been a number of new appointments made there, albeit many of them are well, they are capital funded and fixed term contracts, but they do increase our headcount and FTE. And in terms of comparison of different directorates, just to refresh members' memories, it can't be seen on a like-for-like basis because teams did change last year, so it is a difficult comparison, to be honest. I've mentioned about work with York assignments in paragraph 6. We continue to use Work with York as our agency, and assignment numbers have fluctuated based on the demands of the council, but that is an area that we continue to look at in detail in terms of cost control. Resignations, we've put some tables in Annex 1 about resignations and the reasons for the reasons for why people leave, but we don't take it any further about where people leave to, bless you. We looked at the our workforce profile. Our average age of the workforce is now 47 years old. It's reduced slightly from over the years, which is good. The 50 to 64 age band makes up 44%. So we still know that we have a slightly aging workforce, but this is a slightly higher percentage from Yorkshire and Humber colleagues based on the census data, but noting that the census data is a number of years old now. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair, based on the information. Profiling of the equalities data is largely the same, but we have just had quite a larger exercise to update that, and we hope that that might actually be reflected when we next do this exercise at the end of June, which will be reported in September to this committee. And we've also done our gender pay gap, our ethnicity pay gap and disability pay gap, which are now available on York Open Data. And that's all there. And there are links within the report.
Thank you for that, Helen. Very much appreciated. Does anybody have any questions for Helen? Please go ahead, Councillor Rice.
3 short questions, happy to take them together or...
Yes, yeah.
On page, have I got page? The staff headcount, which is increasing, so it's gone up by 200 over the last 2 years. Obviously, there's the reduction in temp staff. Are we likely to see that? Have we reached the end point of that, or is that continuing to go forward?
To be fair, we're still getting a number of temp staff in Work with York.
As in, so we're saying obviously we're reducing the number of temporary staff and increasing the number of permanent staff,
Yes.
which is what's seen that headcount continue to grow up. I would imagine at some point there's no more temporary staff to replace with permanent staff, so we'd expect that to flatline. That
should flatline. We are coming towards the end of quite major restructures across the council. I anticipate that actually flatlining, yes, but you know, there's always different demands, and we have to be flexible in terms of it, and that's why we have the nature of temporary contracts as well, and have the Work with York assignments to be able to flex and work between those. But on the whole, it really is a concentrated effort to make sure that we reduce our assignments, etc., which you have seen the costs come down over the years.
Page 36, in terms of the turnover, Housing and Communities Directorate seem to be higher than I would expect compared to other ones. Is there a particular reason for that?
Actually, there's been a number of success stories in there, because as I mentioned earlier, we welcomed a number of new colleagues to the directorate, and a number of those new colleagues have then found new jobs within the council. So they've done that. So there's actually been quite a high, what seems to be a high turnover, but new colleagues that have come in and then got promotion into other roles. We have a number of opportunities that have come up as a result, again, of funding in customer and communities. So actually that's been an increase, but people have then moved around, which means that the turnover has changed.
And then the final one was page 40 in terms of the work of the org assignments.
Sorry.
Page 40. Again, looking at Housing and Community Directorate is going the wrong way in terms of work of the org assignments. And again, that figure seems quite high, as does Transport and Environment. I did a quick calculation. So both of those departments have about 500-ish FTEs.
Mhm.
And you're looking at over 100, so that's 20 to 25% of those entire directorates are temp staff. That seems very high and contrary to the story we're being told.
I'd have to get specific figures on those. I do know that we've got a number of major project officers who we've struggled on recruitment within there, so we have actually got temporary staff in there at this point in time. So yes, there is those. You also said housing, I think, again, didn't you?
So housing communities, you've got 125 against 507 FTEs.
Yeah.
And transport environment, you've got 100 against 458 FTEs.
Yeah. So, but those are rolling contracts as well. They're not just a case of we've got 125. These are all total assignments, 125 over the year. So they could be 3 weeks here, they could be a couple of months here and there. So it's a total across. As I say, we've had a number of new posts come, new funding come in as well. And housing and communities also includes our adult learning teams, and we've seen a high flux of new tutors coming in, which are a temporary nature, to be able to make sure that we can hit the ground running with colleagues to make sure there's continuity for adult services.
Thank you for that, Helen. Is that all?
Yeah, that's it, thanks,
Councillor Courtney?
Thanks. Oh, I think mine's, oh no, mine's all right, okay.
It's simultaneous. I would say office units are confused.
It's it's a good point, that, Councillor. It'd be interesting to see that. And I'm glad to hear that the new tutors are coming on. We got a good in Ofsted for the adult York learning, so that was great. Just a couple of points. I think I don't want to brush over the average sickness days are going up. It would be, and I know that you're saying it's a number of smaller departments where it's increasing, but we were really getting to grips with that, and I think sort of the bags to bins rollout that we're doing is mainly to tackle absence in one of the worst performing parts of the council. Am I still getting picked up on the mic here?
Yeah.
Which in waste services, because obviously because of the musculoskeletal injuries lifting bags can have. So it would be good to keep an eye on that and make sure that we are tracking that and it doesn't start to move away, because obviously,
It's
quite a big cost.
Sickness absence.
Sure, go on then, and I'll come back with the other points. That's right. Yeah.
Go on. Appropriate. It's something that I've become quite alive to. So from the HR perspective, we've worked with a number of managers in a number of areas, including our manual areas. Obviously, we've reinforced occupational health, and we've reinforced the tools that actually managers have got available to them, which includes our system, which is called Medigold, where all of our colleagues report into. HR have made themselves very visible across all of managers to be able to make sure that we're addressing both long-term sickness absence, but also short-term sickness absence. We've had a number of new managers, which is really good. We're training them and going through, so it's managing those expectations. We're doing a lot of coaching, including doing difficult conversations coaching, which is really quite important because it's not always a comfortable experience having to talk about health, etc. So HR have really intervened in terms of making sure that that's there, but equally it's managers to have those conversations with staff and making sure that it's comfortable. So we are doing quite a bit of work, because I appreciate that number's gone up slightly. However, again, I will always say, and I've said this before, that comparing with our neighbours, we are going on up a trend exactly the same as our Yorkshire and Humber neighbours. They are also seeing that. We never compare apples with apples in terms of how we manage absence. There's no one common absence calculation. So sorry to interject there.
No,
that'd be quite useful for that.
Yeah, but it's not, and it's good to hear, because obviously we need to stay on it, don't we? And I think just the other part of the report that I want to attract attention to is in the stats around about page 42, 43, 44. I think the report does us a little bit of a disservice saying that we're pretty much where we are. Yeah, there are only percentage increases in diversity that we're seeing year on year, but we are making, I mean, it may be too slow, but we are making steady progress in the right direction. And I think that's worth pointing out at a time when there are many councils in the UK who are saying that diversity doesn't matter. We are very clearly saying in York it does matter. Everybody needs to feel welcome and included, and there's a role for everybody within the council, no matter what your background, where you're from, who you are, you're welcome in here. And it's very pleasing to see that while the progress could be better, of course, we are headed steadily in the right direction, and we will carry on monitoring the diversity of our workforce with a view to increasing it. Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Helen,
Go ahead.
This keeps going off. So
Yeah, it's integrated together.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Just to point out on the equalities profiling, it's been really quite nice. We've had some feedback on some recent interviews about how welcoming and our work on equalities, which it's been direct feedback, even though the candidate didn't get appointed on 2 occasions. They said that the information that they received was really quite welcome and were really interested in us as an employer. So I was quite heartened by that. So that also reflects what you've just said there.
Good. Councillor Ray?
Thank you, Chair. It's just something that came to me as Councillor Cobain was talking. In terms of people on long-term sick, obviously people who have long-term conditions, there will be potentially big changes coming in the benefit system going forward. I know scrutiny are looking at sort of citywide approaches to how we support people through. Are we doing it in-house to make sure that we're aware of anybody who might be, for example, on PIP, maybe losing PIP, to make sure that they're getting the support they need to continue to stay in employment?
We don't offer direct advice as HR, but we do direct and signpost without a doubt, and we do encourage that. Similarly, we are aware that there's changes afoot with access to work, which will impact on a number of our colleagues as well. So yes, we're very alive to those and working with the staff network as well. I'm doing some discussions with the staff network around those, but yes, we are promoting them.
It might be worth just flagging part of that scrutiny review that's happening. They're doing a deep dive thing to mention that.
All right.
A particular topic to look at our own workforce as well.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And the element that I think that we should draw attention to as well is the pay gap reports that you've carried out in this period of time. So the gender pay gap report, which is very positive. Can you give us a bit of information on that, Henry? Have you got that to your fingers? I know it's positive for women, isn't it? In this round.
It is more positive to women than men. And we're actually the lowest pay gap of all the councils in the Yorkshire and Humber, which is something to celebrate. We have some information on the York employers, and we're pretty much leading the way on that there as well, which is really positive. The gap is incredibly narrow, so it's not something that we have to address. However, that doesn't mean to say that we're complacent in any way, shape or form. We still make sure that a lot of our jobs are accessible. We pay the same rate of male or female. That's not a problem. But on the, you mentioned about ethnicity and on the disability, this is where we've used exactly the same calculation as we do for the gender pay gap. But it comes with a caveat that we haven't obviously got all of our workforce, whereas we have that for obviously gender, but we don't have it for ethnicity and disability. And that's something that we're actively promoting with all of our colleagues to make sure that that we can provide more information should we have this. But again, it remains it isn't mandatory, it's only voluntary to produce.
So essentially what you're saying is because people don't have to declare mandatorily have to declare that we don't necessarily know if they fall into these categories or not. So it's not totally accurate.
It's not very comprehensive
reflection, but both for ethnicity and disability pay gap, there is some work to be done there, isn't there, in our organisation, making sure that the makeup of the council reflects society right the way through from top to bottom, and isn't concentrated in middle management or lower level roles, for example.
Definitely, that's something that we need to do.
Yeah. So I have to say I'm really glad to see that the gender pay gap is It's very close, it's close to zero, but it is slightly to the benefit of women, which is quite unusual in an organisation of this size. But there's still some work to be done on both disability and ethnicity pay gap. And I know that as Councillor Kilbane said, we want to make sure that everybody in our organisation, in our city, feels safe, secure and valued in their workplace or in their communities, and this is a big part of that as well. So I know we're very committed to that. So thank you for the work that you're doing and the team are doing. But I think we just need to continue to refine how we reflect this and collect the data, don't we? Great, good. Anybody want to say anything else at this point? No, thank you, everybody. Right, so in that case then, workforce profile. We are on page 30 of the report. At paragraph 20I gives us the recommendation, and I think it just says to note the report and note the workforce profile provided in Annex 1. Can you see those in favour of that, please? Thank you. So that's unanimously approved. And then item number 8 is the redundancy, pension and exit discretions expenditure. And so Helen, can you introduce us to that one then, please?
You can hear me,
Yes,
I think it's going. Thank you, Chair. So yes, this is one of our regular reports that I'm presenting to you. And this is just giving a summary of the last quarter, with the exception we do have one from September. That was a late report. So in the table 1, you've got details where we've got 4 flexible retirements and 5 redundancies, of which 2 of those redundancies have what we call, that is titled in the table as discretionary elements. That discretionary elements is associated with our pensions discretionary policy. These payments are all just statutory redundancy payments, and where an officer is over 55 and made redundant, they are eligible to their pension. And that pension cost is what's in the table that's headed under discretionary elements. So I can confirm that there is no other discretionary elements, no paying up of pension added years or anything like that, which is a discretion that City of York Council have the opportunity to do, as detailed in the discretionary element, pensions discretionary elements policy. Mouthful. But we've not made those. So these are all just basic entitlements. I say we've got 4 flexible retirements and 5 redundancies there, and committee are just asked to note these, and it's just for to have an overview of the expenditure. As you can see, even over the last 12 months, we've had 14 flexible retirements and just the 5 redundancies. Flexible retirements is something that our officers are quite keen to do, and we're keen to support them because it makes sure that we keep some knowledge and helps us do succession planning going forward before they retire. And it's also about being a flexible employer and continuing as well, largely when our staff are getting older, which is positive.
Thank you for that, Helen. So that discretionary elements column then, is
Yes.
there any way that we can make that a bit clearer, because it does,
Absolutely. I think that's what we need to do. Yes. So I'm good. Actually, in table 2, you can actually see you've got total cost of redundancy, and then you've got pension costs. And as you can see, those 2 costs actually correspond. So I think we can just either rename that, and I can put another column into table 1 and table 2 that says discretionary elements, which would all be 0 at this point.
And then a column for pension.
And a column for pension cost, yes.
Yeah.
So you can see the differential. But as you can see, over the last 12 months, there's actually only been 2 that have 2 redundancies that have incurred pension costs.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. Right. Questions, thoughts, comments, Councillor Eyre?
I think we should concur with that, because obviously I flagged that with Helen before
Yes.
the meeting in terms of confusion, and so any clarity in terms of that will
Yeah.
make it much easier.
Yes. Thank you for that. Councillor Kilbane?
Yeah, and thanks for that clarity, because I saw that column and thought, what the hell?
Yeah.
You wanted to note this, we're going to do more than note. But essentially, yeah, it needs to be made absolutely clear that there is no discretion in paying of those costs of the statutory entitlements under the agreements that they have. My question is around the compulsory redundancy, so the big one in housing communities. Obviously, there's correspondence between the discretionary element and the pension cost, but then there's a difference of £20,000 in the 31,000 and the 51,000. What's the reason for that difference?
Just put that out.
Is that, that's
the total.
Are they both rolled in?
It's 3 roles.
Oh, okay.
It's three, yeah,
Okay.
there's 3 roles there.
Right, okay.
Just look at in table 2 you're referring to, is it?
Yeah, so that's,
Yeah,
okay,
total number is 3.
that doesn't add up.
It's 4 and 5, I think.
4 and 5, yeah.
Because I was about to ask the same question.
But
Does it not include roles from
it does, yeah, table 2 is including roles from previous presentations. So this is the last 12 months. So is it the third one down you're referring to?
Yeah, so we've got 51,000 in compulsory redundancy payments.
Yes, but
Although it
there's
does,
another 2 colleagues as well. So
Okay.
there's 3 colleagues in there.
right, so I think that the top of that table needs to say total cost of redundancies.
Because of redundancies, yes.
Otherwise it makes you think, why is that one cost 20 grand more in that column than it did in the other column?
Yeah. The total number there is 3 at the beginning of that line.
So I take it then though, in the top table, sorry to go on, Chair, but just want to get it clear, in the top table, line 3, the 1,186 redundancy is not included in table 2 because it's not in the last 12 months or something, otherwise I can't make them add up.
Yes, it includes those above.
In that case, they're not adding up, are they?
It's still out by about 330.
I can double check this because I've had those from colleagues, so yes, I'll double check this.
Thank you. Right, okay. Fully content for now.
Yeah.
And can you give us that information?
I'll give it
to you. Thank you. So recommendations on page 48 of paragraph 12. And note the expenditure and cases that have been approved, and this report will be presented on a quarterly basis. So can I see those in favour of that recommendation? So unanimously approved as well for that. Thank you very much, everybody. Item number 9 is the work plan. So the next meeting will be in July, and I imagine there will be will potentially be other items that will come onto that.
Yes.
So we'll have a look at that close to the time as well. Everybody okay with the work plan? Yes, Councillor.
You just got my interest with the staffing report title to be confirmed, was it? What is that?
There's a staffing report to come, but yes, the title will be confirmed.
But still was the mystery until
It's the mystery for you. There you go. Look forward to that.
It's a placeholder for you.
Yeah, it's more because we don't normally have back-to-back meetings month on month, so I just wanted to be able to put a placeholder in.
Thank you. Thanks very much for that. And so going back to the agenda then, is the extent of our business today. Item number 10 is urgent business. I have no notification, there is none. So in that case then the meeting is completed, and I'd like to thank everybody for attending today and watching us, and we will see you again soon. Thank you very much.